I want to hear cannons. Outfield, pull up over the 5, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans does it again. Fire the cannons, Bucs.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
Third down, 18, dropping Gannon, looking Gannon, throws up with a catch. Intercepted at the 40. Derrick Bucs 30. Bucs to the 25, 20. Derrick Bucs all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome back, Bucs fans, to an off-season edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, as always, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Evan Wanish. Today, we have got something to break up the monotony of the offseason. We are a little over a month away from the start of NFL free agency. Rumors are running wild. A lot of people are predicting a lot of things for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But today, Evan, we're going to do something we haven't done before on the show. We're going to have a little bit of fun. And I'm excited. You have no idea what we're going to be doing today. The video viewers can see what we're going to be doing today. If you're watching this after the fact or even listening after the fact, you probably know what we're going to dive into. But before we get into that, Evan, how you doing, my friend?
I'm intrigued currently. But other than that, I am doing good. Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of stuff going on in the offseason, and offseason will pick up quicker than we know it. But for now, yeah, we're just trying to get some content out there. And, I think the Buccaneers have a little bit of a blueprint, right? So we'll see what they can get done this offseason.
All right, well, today we're not going to dive into any of the ongoing developments for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they prepare for the start of the 2025 season. Today, Evan, we are going to do a Tampa Bay Buccaneers tier list, but not just any Tampa Bay Buccaneers tier list. We are going to, I guess, just take a look at a random selection of Buccaneers here. We've got some recent names. We have got some legendary names, some Hall of Famers, some players that only played here for a couple of years. I don't know about busts, but some controversial choices, I may say, on this list as well. So we're going to go one by one here, and we're going to rank them on a tier list, S being the highest, D being the lowest, everything in between, S, A, B, C, and D. I think the biggest thing that we're going to have to figure out throughout this episode is how we're going to agree on averaging out our rankings, because we're going to come to a disagreement at some point, and I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But we'll figure out a way to average that out. But let's just dive right into it, Evan. The first Buccaneer on this list is Mr. 1K himself, Mike Evans at the wide receiver position. If it's anything else but an S tier at this point, I know he's not quite a Hall of Famer yet, but he does have a Super Bowl, and he's going to be in the Buccaneers receiving records for a very, very long time, for at least the next 10 years, I think, depending on how much longer he plays. Where do you think Mike Evans is on the tier list?
Yeah, I mean, the only debate here is A or S, right? And I think the Super Bowl win probably puts him in S tier. Now that he has a ring, I think that helps his case, as well for the Hall of Fame. I think, a ring will help a lot of things. So I think S is completely fair for that as well.
I think when we set the context for this tier list as well, what do you think works better? Like, let's just establish the ground rules. We're doing this for the first time. This is a trial run, so we can change the rules as we go along here, I guess. We're already one player in, and that's Mike Evans, who was going to be S tier regardless. But do you want this to be in the context of what they mean to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like where they rank in Buccaneers history? Because that's where I was going with this. Or do you want to do like overall NFL legacy?
No, I would say probably, what they mean to the Bucs, like their Bucs career, basically. I would say, I think that's fair.
I agree 100%. All right, let's dive into this next one. This is a fun one. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Had some fun moments, right? Had a couple of fun moments. Fitzmagic was alive and well, especially in 2018. The Bucs started off 2-0 there, and Fitzpatrick just went off.
Dude, he was the most exciting quarterback to watch the first 2 weeks. I mean, arguably the first 3 weeks of the season. I know they ran into Pittsburgh week 3 on prime time, but he was still slinging the rock I thought for most of that afternoon, I mean, they had the shootout with New Orleans. They got into it with Philly, the reigning Super Bowl champs at that time.
Mhm.
That was electric. That was, I think we thought after those first 3 weeks, the Bucs were world beaters for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, Fitzpatrick definitely had his moments, but then he had his moments. He came back down to earth. So I mean, you got to average that out, kind of. Plus, it wasn't on. Obviously, his 2 years with the Bucks weren't great years for the Bucks. They went 5-11 both years. Um, I mean, I don't know. I was gonna say C, but like the funness of it, I guess
Yeah.
you could say. I mean, you could put it into B, I guess. Pure on-field product, that's probably a C. But I mean that's really up to, I'm fine with either C or B on that one.
That was going to be my reasoning as well behind the B tier spot for Ryan Fitzpatrick here. So I think we'll bump him up to a B. But the Buccaneers, for a lot of those losing seasons, I felt like they were one of the more entertaining losing teams to
Yeah.
watch. 2018, 2019, Bruce Arians got there and things started to turn around. You had all of the turnovers, which we'll get into here eventually. Don't you worry. But even when they were losing games, they were doing it in explosive fashion. I mean, Dirk Cutter, Todd Monken was the offensive coordinator when Dirk Cutter was the head coach, and they always had a top 10 passing offense. They were explosive, big time plays. 2018, there was all that drama between Jameis and Fitz Magic. Dark times, but they made for entertaining ball games for sure. The next name on this list, big defensive name, the first defensive player on this list. Huge defensive name, quite literally, 350 pounds of Polynesian power. Vita Vea is the next Tampa Bay Buccaneer here. Where do you think Vita lies on the tier list? This is interesting because he's got the Super Bowl.
Mm.
He's more dominant at his position. He's more fun to watch, I guess, than Fitzpatrick. You see where I'm going with this, but where do you think Vita's at?
Yeah, I would probably go probably an A. I think I don't think quite S because like S we're talking about like all time guys, right?
Yeah,
Just in my opinion. And Vita Vea is they're one of the best player, arguably their best player on defense. Um, but I think an A is pretty fair for him there. I mean, I wouldn't have really much issue with that.
I agree. You think about, he hasn't played anywhere else. He does have the Super Bowl championship. And all the guys on this list that have a Super Bowl ring, I think that's going to help overall. There's only 2 Super Bowl teams in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. So all of those players are immortalized on their own level. And that certainly helps the legacy in the long run. Don't think he's quite S tier yet, but I mean, if they give him another contract and he keeps playing the way that he has been one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL, one of the most disruptive for sure. He can shut down a run game single-handedly. If he keeps doing that, then I have no doubt he will be in the Buccaneers Ring of Honor. He may even be in the Ring of Honor if he retired tomorrow, to be honest with you.
Maybe.
But I think an A tier for Big Vita Vea is more than fair. We got another defensive player, another defensive tackle. Big 99 Warren Sapp. See, the thing with an NFL Hall of Famer, you check all the boxes, right? He's a Super Bowl champion. He's a Ring of Honor. He's an NFL Hall of Famer. I feel like that's just S tier by default, regardless of how people may feel about the guy off the field or things that he said. Maybe he stiffed him on an autograph one time. Regardless of all of that, I think there isn't really an argument against Warren Sapp being anything other than an S tier. Other than maybe he didn't play here for his entire career, but there's a couple of guys on this list that didn't play here their entire career, and I'm sure that they'll end up in S tier as well. So I got Sapp for an S tier here, Evan.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're an interior defensive lineman, just looking at it now, Sapp has 4 seasons, 3 of them with the Buccaneers, but 4 seasons as an interior defensive lineman with double-digit sacks. I mean, at 1 year, 2000, he had 16 and a half. That is like unheard of by an interior defensive lineman. So, yeah, it just speaks to, his ability and how good he was. So, yeah, I mean, look, how you may feel about the player personally, that's we're talking about the on-field thing here, and I think S tier. When you're in the Hall of Fame, you've won a Super Bowl as a team. You're one of the players, right, that turned the franchise around completely, right? I mean, that was really the start of it. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the other guys that helped that, but back in the mid to late '90s, there to turn the franchise around. So yeah, I think he has to be an S tier.
Not quite an NFL Hall of Famer yet. I think there is a large debate on if he will be one day. But he's in the Ring of Honor. He is a Super Bowl champion, and at one time, he was the highest scoring Tampa Bay Buccaneer in franchise history. My first ever favorite player, the A-Train Mike Allstott. What do you think of Allstott here on the tier list? I mean, again, I feel like even though he's not a Hall of Famer yet, with the records that he has with the franchise, I think there's a strong argument here for another S-tier guy.
Yeah, I think the popularity with the fans too matters. Longevity, right? He played his entire career with the Bucs. Um, I think this is one where you may run into some people that would just have him in A. You might run into some people that are like, yeah, a really good player, but this and that. Like, I get it, and but I'm okay with putting him in S tier. Because I think it's, when you talk about guys that people still talk about, right? That fans still talk about. He's definitely one of them. So I think that's pretty fair.
Next name on this list, Mike Allstott going in the S tier, by the way. No argument there for the A-Train. Next player here, a retro QB. He did bigger things for another franchise, but he got his start in Tampa Bay. That is Steve Young. Poor Steve Young. He got his ass kicked as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer.
Yeah. Yes, then this is our first case, right? Of basically not doing all time, right? Because all time he'd probably be an S, or at least an A. We're doing his Buccaneer career. So I mean, look, yeah, he got to start with the Bucs. Didn't really have much success, like you said. Didn't really work out great. I mean, you either got to go C or D, right? I mean, he wasn't playing on very good Bucs teams.
Yeah.
Only played 2 seasons with Tampa. Had a record of 3-16. I probably got to go D, to be honest with you. I mean, both seasons that he played with the Bucs, he threw more interceptions than touchdowns. Like he did struggle. So I would probably say. Probably gotta be in D, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't even think you can bring out the funness meter on this one either. People who remember Steve Young back in the day, I don't think remember it fondly. His best season was in 1986 that year. He threw for 2,282 yards. He played in 14 games, had 8 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. He was sacked 47 times, which I'm not sure what the league record was back then. I'm not sure who the league leader in sacks given up was as far as the offensive line stats go in 1986, but holy hell, poor Steve Young. Again, NFL Hall of Famer, all-time great. D-tier Tampa Bay Buccaneer, I think. I think we can go D-tier Buccaneer. Let's get to a more recent name. I think probably the youngest name on this list, and one that I was actually surprised to see on here. That is Tampa Bay Buccaneer Rookie of the Decade in my book. I mean, next to Tristan Wirfs and all of that stuff, those statistical guys, are up there, obviously. But on the funness scale, when you talk about Bucky Irving, dude, one of the most exciting Buccaneer rookies to watch in quite some time. Bucky Irving already on the Buccaneers tier list.
Yeah.
Just to kind of, I guess mix things up for you here. Here's a juicy one. I think he's definitely more deserving of a D tier, but is he better than Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, I mean, he is, but at the same time, like it's one season.
Yeah.
And if we had Fitzpatrick on there as a B with just a couple of games, like he didn't even play, like technically he didn't even start a full season.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we probably have to put him in B, I guess. You can't put him in A.
I don't think you can. I don't think it doesn't make sense to put Bucky in A and Vita him next to Vita Vea
No,
over it's too much. It's too much. So Even a B feels generous, and this is
A B
coming
does
from
feel generous after one season.
yeah, this is coming from the biggest Bucky Irving fan on the planet. So I mean, I am cautiously optimistic that the rest of his career in Tampa Bay is going to play out to be deserving of a B tier, but because of that exciting rookie season, we're talking about the funness scale. The fans love him, chanting his name. All of this stuff, I guess, is going to factor into it.
Yeah.
I
wish, in hindsight, and I don't want to go back and switch them or whatever, but in hindsight, we probably should have put Fitzpatrick in C, because then we could have put Irving in C too. I think that's the right spot, but B's fine. But yeah, that's the highest you can go.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, like I think Bucky Irving's gonna have a good career, but let's not forget Doug Martin had a great rookie season too. I understand that Bucky Irving's rookie season was better statistically, but Doug Martin had a great rookie season too. And it doesn't mean that it's gonna be, he's gonna be like an all-time great for this team.
And I think what's messed up is it might. I feel like we're not going to get a lot of use out of the C tier here. I feel like that's going to be. You proposed a good point. I mean, listen, we said earlier that we can change the rules as we go along. This is the first time we've done this thing. Do we want to bump Ryan Fitzpatrick down to the C tier so we can justify putting Bucky in the C tier? Because I feel like there should be a bigger gap between Bucky Irving and Vita Vea than just one tier, right?
Yeah, and also, all right. One-time exception, we can do it.
Okay. It's just one player. I mean,
yeah. Because technically it's two, but I think the other thing is I think there's more of a possibility of having more B players than there is C players, just like you said. So
right, I think it establishes a little bit more of a gap when you take into account one, how long Vita Vea has been doing it for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Super Bowl championship, like that feels a little more than one tier.
Right.
So couple of audibles here just to revisit. We're a little over a quarter away through the tier list here. From the S tier, everybody that we've got so far: Mike Evans, Warren Sapp, Mike Allstott. Three of the best Buccaneers in history, all deserving of an S tier. In the A tier, by himself so far, big number 50, Vita Vea. Nobody in the B tier yet. In the C tier, after the update, Ryan Fitzpatrick and Bucky Irving. And I think people might be upset about the Bucky Irving ruling.
I think people won't be happy.
I think we're going to have a lot of people in the comments with us arguing. I hope we do. It really helps out the engagement, the algorithm. So please.
Sure.
Yeah, please argue with us all you want. And in the D tier so far, Steve Young.
And a reminder, this is their Buccaneer career. So if you're going to skip ahead and not listen to us talk about Steve Young, this is Steve Young, the Buccaneer. This is not Steve Young, the 49er. So we're not doing all time. We are doing what they did for the Buccaneers.
We got another Tampa Bay Buccaneer quarterback on the list. We got a juicy one here. That's Tom Brady, TB12. I mean, there's only two tiers this guy can go in. And I think we might both be a little biased because we were Brady fans before he even got to Tampa. But where does the GOAT rank for you here?
I want to put him in S.
I do too.
But I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can because the longevity.
3 years.
I don't know. If they would have won another Super Bowl, I think you could put him in S. If he would have won 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, I think you could. Like if they went back to back, like they probably should have. But if they would have went back to back, you could have put him in S.
Now,
but I don't know.
Consider this perspective. And again, we both want to put him in S tier here. So I think we need as much justification as we can find to do so. Consider this. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in those 3 years that Tom Brady was on the Bucs, the third year that we didn't even know he was going to be coming back, he was the number 1 sold jersey. The Buccaneers were the most popular team in the world. Not just, in America. They weren't just the highest selling jersey in Florida or the U.S. I mean, around the world, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had more impressions, followers, fans, the fan groups, Bucs UK, the Bucs groups in Germany that have been around for a very long time trying to get them to, I guess, ultimately waiting for an NFL game in Germany, which they got. The Buccaneers get the win in Germany in 2022, one of the more exciting wins of Tom Brady's final season. Just the sheer amount of love that Tom Brady had as, a football megastar, the greatest of all time. Think about this. If we put him in A tier, the amount of people who are going to comment on this video and write us an essay as to why we're wrong because Tom Brady is the sole reason the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. He's not, but people feel that way about Tom Brady. So when we factor in the fan love aspect, I don't think anybody in the history of the franchise has been more widely adored than one TB12.
I think it's Mike Evans.
You're right. I guess you're right. When you talk about longevity, yeah, but I mean,
this is somebody who was drafted by them. Like, the thing for me is the longevity thing. That's the thing. And also, yes, we can talk about the popularity thing, but the thing that has to matter the most is the on-field thing. And he just wasn't on the field long enough.
Yeah.
And then that last year they had a losing record.
You're right.
They got blown out in the wild card.
You could, some would argue he was checked out at some points of the season. Yeah. I mean, you can make that argument. If you want.
I think it pains me. I think we have to put him in A. I just don't think he played long enough with the Bucs. So like we're putting him up there with Mike Evans, Mike Allstott, Warren Sapp. Like I know Sapp didn't finish his career at Tampa, but like Sapp was drafted by the Bucs. Like he is a Buccaneer, right? Like Brady just he played for the Bucs, but like if you're a diehard Bucs fan and you've been a diehard Bucs fan since 1976. The first person that comes to your mind when you think of the Bucs probably isn't Tom Brady.
You're right. No, you're right. Especially if you have been watching the team for a long time. You grew up watching the team. It's not like you grew up and your favorite player was Tom Brady. I mean, right. A lot of people that can happen. Don't get me wrong. But if you're talking about like favorite Bucs player, mine, right. Mine was Mike Allstott. Like I didn't grow up a Tom Brady fan because I wasn't watching him every week. Once my mom got with my stepdad, who was a Patriots fan, I was watching Tom Brady every week, and then he became one of my favorite players. But I get what you're saying. And honestly, for the sake of our list, I do think it is the right thing to do. Because, again, you look at a guy like Vita Vea, who has been here for twice as long as Tom Brady was, has won a Super Bowl, will be in the record books one way or another, I'm sure. Will be in the Ring of Honor without a doubt, but the longevity of it.
Yeah. And again, if we're doing all time, there's an S tier and then there's a Brady tier, right? But it's just, we're doing the Buccaneer career. And like I said, if they would have won the Super Bowl, I think you have to put them in S tier, right? Yeah. But the fact that they won one, and that's very important. For sure, but it was 3 seasons. It just, for me, it just wasn't quite long enough. So, and I think when you look at it, and if you're going to ask a Buccaneers fan who's your all-time favorite Buccaneer, honestly, I don't think there's going to be many that say Tom Brady. Like I don't think there's going to be many. You'll get some, but I think you're going to get the guys that we have in S tier right now. I think that's who you're going to get.
So let me ask you, as a kid who grew up with your favorite player being Tom Brady, who's your favorite all-time Buccaneer? It's Tom Brady, isn't it?
Probably, but
I'm
not.
Brady,
but also not everybody grew up that way,
Sure, yeah.
So like it's a different scenario.
I think a lot of people did. I do think that whether they loved or hated him, a lot of people grew up watching Tom Brady just dominate the NFL with the New England Patriots.
That was the longest debate we've had so far on that one. So that was good.
I think it was worth it. I think the right thing to do here is Tom Brady A tier. So after much deliberation, we will put the greatest of all time in the A tier as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. If they hadn't won a Super Bowl at all, let's say they just win a couple playoff games, you go on a deep playoff run in 2020, you go on a deep playoff run in 21, you get beat by the Cowboys in the first round in 22, he's a B tier. You know what I mean?
I would say A. I mean, that's a team that they made the playoffs in 2020.
If they don't win a Super Bowl?
They hadn't made the playoffs since 2007.
You're right.
Before he got there, so like they weren't relevant at all really in the 2010s. Like, and like having Tom Brady on the team, you'd still get the national media coverage, you'd still get the fans, you'd still get the numbers, you'd still get the praise. Like, even if they didn't win the Super Bowl, I would still probably say A. Like, assuming he has the same like stats, he should have won MVP in 2021.
He should have,
assuming he has the same exact numbers, they just don't win the Super Bowl. I think he's probably still A.
I think we could do an entire episode on this debate,
Oh
to be
yeah,
honest with you.
you could. And also, like, if he wins the MVP in 2021, does that move him into S? The
Right.
Bucks have never had an MVP. As he, him being the only MVP in team history, does that move him into S? Maybe.
All right. It is settled. Tom Brady will be in the A tier. But let us know in the comments. We are excited to hear your feedback. Excited to really get into it with some of you guys. It won't be hateful, though, or anything like that, obviously.
No, it never is.
Yeah, no. It never is. We got a fun one here. Antonio Brown.
So this is important to remember on field, not when he was taking his clothes off, but
Right. I mean, it was on the field. It was
It
in
was
the
on
middle
the
of a
field.
game. I can judge him for that.
All right, okay. Again, he didn't really play long, obviously with Tampa, right? Joined them mid-season in 2020. And then was hurt a little bit in 2021, and then, got released late in 2021. I don't think it's D. It's not D. It's either C or B for me. Because like I do think he helped them.
Yeah.
Like he did, and in 2021 there was times he was their best receiver.
Again, I think that when we talk about not only their career as a Buccaneer, he did help the team. He certainly hurt the team. And I think that when we talk about the stuff on the field, we literally have to talk about what he chose to do on the field. The Bucs were playing a game, and he was in the end zone, taking his pads off, waving to the crowd. That's going to dock some points. I don't give a damn if you're a Super Bowl champion or not.
All
so
right.
I can't.
I think C tier's okay.
I think C. I was gonna go C tier as well because
if that didn't happen, I think he's B tier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all day. I think there's an argument that if that doesn't happen and he plays the rest of that season, the Buccaneers are Super Bowl champions again. But that's neither here nor there. But if that happens, if he plays the rest of that season with no incident, there could be an argument for A tier. To be honest with you, he had a touchdown in the Super Bowl. But it's crazy how you can be such a garbage human off of the field that it somehow leaks into your NFL career at some point. And a couple of loser podcasters down in Tampa can put you on a tier list here and deliberate what you're worth. So I'm going to say a C tier. I can't put AB above a guy like Bucky Irving just because Bucky's so well liked. And in hindsight, it's obviously always going to be 2020, but AB is AB. And he makes people feel the way that he does. So we will agree to put him at a C tier. Very entertaining player. Super Bowl champion. Help this team. Help this offense. I mean, carry this offense.
Scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Carry this offense at times. I remember 2021. Were you at that Miami game?
Yeah. Dude, that was a big one.
He was scooting. You remember he beat the entire Miami defense by himself. Tom Brady threw 5 touchdowns that afternoon.
He had 2 of them.
Yeah. Just a monster day, and he had a lot of plays like that. Oh damn, man! I'm sitting here talking about it.
It's a shame.
It's tempting, but yeah, he literally quit on the team, and I can't. That's gonna harper. It's gonna harp your legacy, I think. So we'll go Antonio Brown at the C tier here, joining Ryan Fitzpatrick and Bucky Irving. It doesn't feel right, but I think it is the right move. Kate Otten. More of a recent name here, number 88. I know you kind of roll your eyes.
No, I mean I'm surprised he's available here.
I think justification would just put him at a C tier by default because again he's not Steve Young. He's had a career metamorphosis, if you will. He's not quite an upper echelon tight end in the NFL, but he is much better than he was his rookie season. He has had some success with the Buccaneers. He's also got a playoff win or 2 under his belt. I think a playoff win.
I mean, are we real? If we're talking about on-field stuff, are we really going to put him a tier? Is he a tier above what Bucky Irving and Antonio Brown did?
I don't believe so. I know he's been here longer. Yeah, but he definitely stepped up and earned his paycheck
for sure.
In the 2024 season when the Bucs were without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for that stretch. He was the primary target for Baker Mayfield. We were kind of hoping it would be Jalen McMillan at that time, but it was Kate Otten. So he is a dog, and I think he's going to continue to do great things for the Buccaneers, but I don't think he's really better than any of those guys in the C tier so far.
Yeah. It is funny that we said, "Oh, we're not going to have many C tier guys," and we put 2 guys in there. So,
Well, because we changed the rules.
I know.
Remember, if we didn't change the rules, I think there would be a little bit more of a
Maybe
struggle.
we would have had to put Otten and Brown in the B tier, probably.
Right? Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I think Otten C tier is fair.
All right. Next name on this list, another not quite Hall of Famer yet. He will be probably a first ballot guy. Super Bowl champion. And I want to say he's in the Buccaneer record books. I'm not sure to what extent. I may have to look that up. But I'm sure him and Tom have plenty of NFL records already. That is one of the greatest tight ends of all time, Rob Gronkowski.
I just off the cuff, probably B tier.
Yeah.
Because look, he played one less year than Tom Brady did. He only played 2 seasons with the Bucs, and yes, it did. He scores 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Like he helped them win for sure. So he's a tier above Antonio Brown and everything. Like he's a tier but like it wasn't like you got 5-6 years of dominant Rob Gronkowski, like 2016 Rob Gronkowski. Like that wasn't
Well, and
who it
remember
was.
too. I mean, 2021.
Well,
he
you
was-
remember 2020,
he was-
like first 6-7 games, he wasn't that great.
Yeah,
Like he didn't really do much.
Yeah, he really didn't explode until I think that Packers game
Yeah.
when Aaron Rodgers and the Packers had come to town. He showed up, got a touchdown that game. But 2021, he started the season on fire. He was a monster. He looked like prime Rob Gronkowski. And then at some point, the injuries start to creep in.
Yeah.
And he is kept off of the field for weeks at a time. And you're realizing that this offense was just missing him. And, that's going to be taken into account. So longevity, availability. I know he was explosive when he was on the field. He was fun to watch. He's a Super Bowl champion. And I'm sure that he will be in the Buccaneers Ring of Honor one day. I know he played one less year than Brady, but he's a fan favorite. The people love him. So I think B tier for Gronk is fair here. I feel comfortable saying that Bucky Irving's only played 1 year. AB did what AB did. K-Dot. I think Gronk is better than all those guys. All right, here's another Buccaneer legend at the linebacker position. And maybe we'll hear something about his NFL future within the next few weeks, within the next few months. You never want to rush these guys, but Lavonte David, who may be contemplating retirement headed into the 2025 season for the Buccaneers. But right now I want to get your opinion. Where does he rank on the tier list? Super Bowl champion, has a lot of NFL, has a lot of not only NFL, but Buccaneer records. And he's going to be in the Ring of Honor. He seems like an S tier guy to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where I would consider putting him in A tier, but since Mike Evans is in S tier, I think you have to put him in S tier. I don't think you can. I don't think you can have one without the other. So I think again, drafted by the team, has been on the team longer than Mike Evans, the longest tenured Buccaneer on the roster. And played the position at a high level, right? It's not like he was like, oh, he's a decent linebacker. He played for him for 10 years. No, like he's been one of the best linebackers in the NFL for a long time. So I think, I mean, going to be probably a Hall of Famer. I mean, might get his number retired by the team. Like, will be in the Ring of Honor regardless on if he gets his number retired, which there is a difference, folks. There is a difference between being in the Ring of Honor and having a number retired. The Buccaneers only have a couple. I think it's 63, 99, and 55. I think are the only 3 numbers that are retired. I don't believe there's obviously like Mike Allstott's in the Ring of Honor, but I don't think his number's retired. I'm gonna look that up right now.
Yeah, because I know that
just to be sure.
Yeah, there's only like a couple that are official, but they obviously don't hand out 20. They don't hand out 47.
Yeah, like there's some unwritten rules, right? There's some they're not gonna. Yeah, so the Buccaneers have 3 right now. Derrick Brooks 55, Leroy Selman 63, and Warren Sapp 99. Those are the only retired numbers. So you could see Lavonte David having a retired number as well. So we'll see, but I think he has to be in. If Mike Evans is an S tier, I think it's fair enough to put Lavonte David there as well.
I agree. You will find no argument from me. I have been one of the biggest Lavonte David fans here on the show for many, many years now. We have been trying to tell the people for almost a decade about how great he is. So I see no other reason to not make him an S tier guy. So Lavonte David in the S tier, joining Mike Allstott, Warren Sapp, and Mike Evans. We got a fun one here again. Gerald McCoy.
Oh, this might bring some debate.
I think yeah.
So he's not S. We know that.
I don't think he's a D either. I don't think he's D. I mean, come on, dude.
No, it's either A or B for me.
Really?
I mean, I think people forget how good he was. And like
No, I
you're
agree.
talking about like and he was good on like some not so good Buccaneers teams. Like he was a bright spot on teams that were not good.
Yeah, I mean, think about, all the premier edge rushers he played with during his times here.
Yeah,
Think
had
about
so
all
much
the
help.
stacked defenses that he had around him. I mean, Lavonte David was probably the only Lavonte David and Will Golston were the two most consistent teammates he had.
Why do you think he's like friends with only Levante David from those teams?
Right.
Um, I think B is probably fair. I think he is a good player. I think he got a little underappreciated especially towards the end. He got a little underappreciated. Because people don't realize, I think, how good he was and how better he would have been had he had better help. I mean, look, the best edge rusher he probably played with was Michael Bennett,
Yeah.
probably. And he played with him for what, 2 seasons or so, 3 seasons maybe. So yeah, I mean, was on a lot of defenses with not a lot of help. I guess maybe you could say Jason Pierre-Paul might be, better because I think he played 1 season with Jason Pierre-Paul, 2018 year. So, I think B for Gerald McCoy. I mean, he was a high draft pick, was a good player, multiple time Pro Bowler. I think B is fine.
Yeah, I think B's fine as well. I'm going to go B here. I think recency bias and, unfortunately, social media doesn't help Gerald McCoy's case because, a lot of people didn't like. I may have been one of those people at the time, but a lot of people were not fans of seeing your team captain on defense help up the opposing quarterback, say, hey, man, I'm sorry, dap him up, give him a high five, and then go yell at fans on Twitter after the game. That stuff typically doesn't go over well with people. And again, recency bias, winning games helps. Unfortunately, Gerald McCoy never saw the postseason as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Didn't win any playoff games. Wasn't on any good defenses, though. But was damn good for a very long time. Was one of the best defensive players they had, if not the best defensive player, next to a guy like Lavonte David. So I think B tier is sufficient because I feel confident in saying that Gerald McCoy is better than Fitzmagic, Bucky Irving, Antonio Brown, and Kate Otten. I think that is more than fair. You put him on the level with Rob Gronkowski, who is an NFL Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion. He wasn't here nearly as long, accomplished a lot more than Gerald McCoy, but Gerald McCoy, in terms of Buccaneers history, statistics, and just showing up for years on end, like he deserves a B tier. I think that should be good. I don't think that should piss anybody off other than Gerald McCoy. All right, Brad Johnson, the next quarterback on this list here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got 3 more quarterbacks here, and Brad Johnson, what do you got for bad Brad?
This is one where I wonder how he'd be perceived if they didn't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, would he be perceived as just another veteran guy that was like, okay, he's fine,
Like a Dilfer.
Like, I think that, exactly. Like, I think the fact that they won the Super Bowl helps his case, but like they didn't win it because of him. But he was a solid starter.
I mean, the
Either
Bucs,
B or C.
They went and got him. I think
Yeah.
that is to address what they were lacking on the offensive side of the ball. I'll put him in C tier. He's a Super Bowl champion. Again,
I mean,
he's not the reason.
was with the team for 4 years. Yeah, but like, are we gonna put him in the same exact tier as Rob Gronkowski and Gerald McCoy? Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it feels like there is a little bit of a gap there, even if it is only.
And I know, like, McCoy didn't win a Super Bowl, but like all-time Buccaneer, McCoy was like better than Brad Johnson.
Was Brad Johnson a fan favorite? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either. I was 1 year old.
I don't know. All right. Well, I think maybe we'll see if we get any comments about this, but I'm going to go ahead and put him in the C tier here.
All right. Yeah, we got to make some tough decisions at some point.
Yeah.
So
getting down to the nitty gritty here. We got another quarterback on the list, though.
I think I know who.
2015, number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback for 5 seasons. Another juicy one. We got Jameis Winston on the tier list. What do you think? Where do you think famous Jameis should go?
So now here's the tough thing with putting Brad Johnson in C. Because Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl, can you put Jameis Winston in the same tier as Brad Johnson?
You're right.
Because I think Winston's probably C.
I think you can. Because, again, all the things that we are taking into account here. The longevity. Johnson played 4 years with the team. Jameis played 5.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Johnson
put up records, like team records.
Right, and I think that is what's going to help his case. I also think support from the fans overall is going to help his case too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is more recency bias. I think Brad Johnson, wasn't quite known for turning the ball over as much. I don't think he was
no dip. Yeah,
he wasn't spiking fans' blood pressure quite as much as Jameis was, but
also he wasn't making half the plays that Jameis was either. So
right, Jameis was electric. And
former number 1 overall pick.
The fun factor. He is overall higher on the fun scale than Brad Johnson was.
And also, like, thinking about, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick in that tier too. So I just thinking about it, I think, it's fair to put Winston in C tier because we can't put Winston a tier below Fitzpatrick. Like, you can't.
No, you're right. I think Jameis Winston, this might get some pushback. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this one might be one of the more, I don't know, one of the more hateable
What, you
ones
think
here.
people wanting him in B or people wanting him in D?
I don't know. I want to think that
there's going to be some FSU fans that are like, he's in
That's
A.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm waiting for. Let's move on here. We have got 7 more players on this list here. Going to close things out here with a running back, though. Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, it's pretty easy for me. It's C, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, played with the team for 3 years, won a Super Bowl, was a big part in winning the Super Bowl. Like, he was great in that playoff run. Yeah, I mean, but is what he is. Got replaced, obviously after 3 years. I'm safe putting him in C. I'm fine. Because D to me is like you struggled as a Buccaneer. Like, I don't think Leonard Fournette struggled consistently as a Buccaneer. There were times, but then there was also bright spots. Like Steve Young did not have many bright spots with the Bucs. He won 3 games total. Like Leonard Fournette, at least won a Super Bowl with the team. So I'm fine with him being in C.
I agree. I think there are some things that you can kind of pick apart about playoff Lenny as well. Unfortunately, after the Buccaneers gave him that contract, there weren't many moments where he showed up and dominated the way that you would have hoped he did. I know that 2021, against the Colts, he had that 4 touchdown game.
Yeah, maybe 4.
Yeah, it was a 4 touchdown game for him. It was ridiculous. He had a couple of big time games, but I feel like there's a lot that you can look at.
And then 2022, he got replaced by Rashad White essentially.
That's what I'm
mid-season.
saying. So there's a lot of things that you can really pick at during his time here and say that this was a letdown, this was underwhelming, this was disappointing. This is why he's a C tier. So Leonard Fournette will be a C tier, which is crazy. Not that crazy. Derrick Brooks. I think this is going to be the shortest conversation of all time. S tier, no conversation.
Yeah, it's S tier.
Come on. Okay.
Might be our last S tier though. Well, maybe there might be
will
one
it?
more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, will it? Because we got we got 2 here that are gonna be really good back to back. Leroy Selman.
Yeah, this is I think this is a debate, right? And this is tough for us, right? We didn't watch Leroy Selman, right? We so there's gonna be some fans that did watch Leroy Selman are like, you guys are crazy. This is all, But I mean, first ever draft pick of the team, right? Dude's in the Ring of Honor. Numbers are tired. Think because the numbers are tired, I think you got to put in the S tier. The other 2 guys that have their numbers retired, we put them in the S tier. It's Warren Sapp and Derrick Brooks. I think since Selman's number is retired, I think you have to put him in the S tier.
I will agree. He broke the mold for Tampa Bay. He is the original Buccaneer for a reason.
Had a restaurant. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I was there once before they closed.
Jobbers don't get steakhouses.
No, they don't.
You really don't see that happen very often. Expressways. I just paid over $1,100 to the Selman Expressway to renew my
There you
registration
go.
on my
See?
vehicle.
Supporting
Yeah,
the cause.
it was awesome. It was great. I'm very,
Yeah, I'm
very,
sure
very
you're
happy.
stoked.
Yeah, very happy to support my local cause. Leroy Selman in the S tier here. I think just legacy alone, and again, what he meant to the organization in those early years, and honestly, what he meant to the city of Tampa down the stretch. I know that that's outside of his Buccaneer career, but I don't know, more positive ammunition to show that he was one of one, man. He was an all-timer and one of the all-time greats. So the original Buccaneer will be in the S tier. The most recent Buccaneer Hall of Famer, Rondé Barber.
Yeah. Now he is a longtime Buccaneer, right? All-time Buccaneer, like that matters, right? Played his entire career with the team. Has arguably the most iconic play in team history, right? That matters too. This is tough. I think you could make the argument for either S or A though. Um,
I think. Go ahead.
because like was he ever like I think you could look at it, right? Years with that defense where you could say, yep, Sapp was their best player on defense. There was years when you looked at it and say Brooks was their best player on defense. Oh, Levante David was their best player on defense. Was there ever a year where you could say Rondé Barber was their best player on defense?
No, but I do think there were seasons where the numbers can show that he was one of the most impressive corners in the NFL, and that was multiple seasons. I mean, he is an NFL Hall of Famer. A lot of people say that he revolutionized the nickel corner position. You know, he was just a dynamic player. Played here for a very, very, very long time as well. You know, played his entire career as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Has the biggest play in franchise history. A lot of people think that one play is bigger than anything they did in the Super Bowl, solely because of what it meant to get over the hump of getting to the Super Bowl, but getting over the hump of the Eagles. I can't make any arguments against S tier here for Rondé Barber. I mean, he's still making content with the Buccaneers. Like he's the only Hall of Famer that pops up on the YouTube channel and on the hype videos and all of that stuff. Every single year, he's in the booth calling preseason games. He is on the YouTube channel twice a week doing film breakdowns after games for both sides of the ball. I think that all of that stuff definitely matters here. Rondé Barber. I think Rondé Barber is S tier without a doubt, man. One of the greatest to ever do it.
All right. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Like I said, I'm not gonna throw one way or another. Just I do think there's a little bit of a debate there. But
so we'll throw another name into the hat here, and I think there's more of a debate with this guy, to be honest with you.
I think I know who it's gonna be.
It's not on this tier list, which is really weird. So if you're watching on the video thing, it's not going to show up on our official graphic because whoever made this list didn't put him on here for some reason. But the last Buccaneer Hall of Famer, Mr. John Lynch, it's safety. Not on this. Yeah. I don't know why he's not on this list, but I mean, John Lynch, S or A tier here, Evan, I think is.
I think it's A. I mean, didn't finish his career with Tampa. And I know we put Warren Sapp in there, but like Warren Sapp was like one of those dudes, I really, really, really good player, obviously, but I think it's probably A.
I think for all the things that we have mentioned so far, and again,
there's only so many like S is special, right?
Yeah.
Like there's only so many guys you can put in S, and
I think all the things that we just talked about with like Rondé Barber, I think everything that we just talked about with Rondé Barber can be applied to the John Lynch conversation. Didn't play here his entire career. Was a damn good safety. Was the hardest hitting safety, or one of the hardest hitting safeties in the league. That's the thing too, is that his era certainly didn't help because he was one of the harder hitting safeties in an era filled with just monsters at the safety position.
Yeah, I mean, you had Dawkins,
you had Ed Reed.
Yeah.
So he's a monster. He is an all-time great. He will be the only Buccaneer Hall of Famer, though, that is not in the S tier. So we will put John Lynch unofficially in the A tier because he doesn't have a graphic for some reason. But only three more names.
It's very funny that Bucky Ray and Kate Otten get them, but John Lynch doesn't.
Yeah, an interesting choice, interesting design choice there. But let's get into our final three names as we bring this thing home, Evan. At the defensive line, we had a lot of discourse about Gerald McCoy. I think this is another fun name. His replacement, number 93, and Ndamukong Suh, Super Bowl champion.
See.
Yeah.
I have trouble because yes, he's a Super Bowl champion, but like he was good, right? But he didn't have the same production that McCoy had as a Buccaneer.
Yeah,
And he wasn't here as long. So
he wasn't
yeah.
an all-pro. His all-pro years weren't in Tampa.
Right. Like his best years weren't. He was good, but like I think if we're talking about his Buccaneer production, I think it's C.
I agree. It does. And it's interesting too though because you've got Gronk at B, Super Bowl champion, didn't play as long. I know overall the legacy is much.
Yeah, but I think Gronk did more to affect winning than Suh did.
2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, Ndamukong Suh was absolutely.
He was good. He mattered, but
I
just think Gronk was better.
And it's tough to look at the roster around them too because on the defensive and offensive side of the ball, they were loaded. So it wasn't like it was Gronk and then just a bunch of dudes, and it wasn't Suh and then just a bunch of dudes. Like it was a stacked roster. So yeah, I'm okay with that. Suh at C tier. We might get a little bit of pushback on that one, but I'm curious to see it. I'm curious to see if we do. 2 more names on this list. We're going to save the quarterback for last. Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say B tier. And I know that I know it might sound generous at first, but think about.
Honestly, I was thinking you were going to say A or B. So
I was going to go B because I think he is comfortably a level above all those guys in C because he's been here for as long as he has. He has had a damn good Buccaneer career, especially when you think about our history at the wide receiver position. It's, Mike Evans, number 1, Chris Godwin, number 2 in the record books for a long while.
And I mean, you're going to be talking about like all-time Bucs receivers. Like Chris Godwin might be their second best receiver ever. Like,
I'm sitting here looking at A and B now too, and like Chris Godwin.
To be fair, like I don't think B's egregious. Like I think B is fine. Because I'm trying to think of who else is in the list, right? Because right now in A of Vita Vea,
we've only got
Tom Brady, Tom and unofficially John Lynch. Like, is Chris Godwin on that level? I don't know.
Is Chris Godwin? I think the big name that's going to hold it up for me is like, is Chris Godwin on the same level as a Vita Vea?
Yeah, it's close.
It is.
But like, I mean, again, on an offense with Mike Evans on it, we say, oh well, Chris Godwin's never really their best offensive player. Vita Vea, you could say right now, is the best player on the defense.
Man, like, early on in 2024, we were making a case that Chris Godwin was.
I know. And hey, and again, Vita Vea is still playing, right? We said he could potentially get to S tier. Chris Godwin is still playing. So there's an opportunity. Like Bucky Irving, you do this list in a year, Bucky Irving might be B tier. Like Kate Otten might be B tier. Like there's room for these guys to grow. I'm fine rattling the cages a little bit and putting Godwin in B. I am. I think A and S, have to have some high standards there. And Chris Godwin is great, but he's missed some time with injury. That matters. 2 major injuries, a lot of missed time. Didn't start off as a starter. Again, not really anything that's his fault, but I'm fine with getting a little hot there and putting Godwin in B.
I'm going to tend to agree with you here. I know that I kind of threw out B at first, but it feels right. He feels so close.
Do you ever look at the Bucs offense on paper and say, yep, Chris Godwin's their best player? No.
I think he is the one player on this list that you can most look at and make a case to put him in either one. Like, he is right there to be A tier, in my opinion. I know
and if he re-signs with the team, which I expect he will, in 2 years, 3 years, he probably will be an A tier. But right now, I think it's probably B.
I mean, you're talking about a guy that has been here since 2017. If he does re-sign here, yeah, like you said, I think that's going to help. But you're talking about one of the longest tenured Buccaneers receivers in franchise history, if he's not already up there already. So he's so close to an A tier that he can smell it. But I think we can agree to leave Chris Godwin at a B tier. But I think. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Chris Godwin at a B tier.
Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Let us know.
Let's get to our final player here as we wrap up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tier list. Here we go, buddy. The quarterback, Baker Mayfield. 2 seasons as the starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He does have...
And now he gets to join Steve Young. Down in the dumps. Hey, I mean, that's the only other quarterback to start 2 seasons, right? Everybody else is multiple. Fitzpatrick wasn't the starter, but I've never seen Baker Mayfield throw a deep ball to Deshaun Jackson. So
this is a good one to save for last, I thought.
Yeah, it is. So there's probably gonna be people that put him in S. But I think when you're looking at it, right, who is in each list, I think you probably have to go B. Because I can't put him in the same tier as Tom Brady. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl. Baker Mayfield
absolutely, absolutely not.
I can't put him in. I don't really want to put him into C.
Yeah.
Because I think he's better than Brad Johnson, and like he's better than Fitzpatrick, and like Jameis. Yeah, but like Baker's been to the playoffs twice now. Like Jameis never went to the playoffs, so like it's kind of tough for me to put him.
The playoff win is obviously, the playoff win, 2 playoff appearances. Making the most out of 2 different offensive coordinators, and really, the Bucs brought him in to be the guy, and he has been the guy and then some. But the playoff wins, I think, are what hold the most weight for me.
Mm-hmm.
I am surprised though to see.
Get ready to learn Steve Young, buddy.
I am surprised that you were as willing as you were to bump him to a B tier, but that feels perfectly justifiable to me. I was going to make the argument for B tier. I was waiting on you to tell me that he's a C tier guy. I
think it's close. I think it's close. I think the reason though is the playoffs thing. Like if let's say they went to the playoffs last year. Honestly, like even though like I just have a tough time putting him in the same tier as Jameis Winston when
I get it.
When Winston if Winston would have went to the playoffs at least once,
then
I would have been like, okay, well, we put Winston in C tier, you gotta put Baker in C tier. But like the fact that Baker's been to the playoffs twice and has won a playoff game when Winston never even went to the playoffs, and like Fitzpatrick only started a couple games for him, like I have a tough time putting him in the same tier.
Maybe it was the year they went 9-7. Actually, no, I don't know. It wasn't because the Falcons went to the Super Bowl that year. Did Jameis ever win the division?
No, they never made the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. Like, oh yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So Baker comes in, wins the division 2 years in a row.
Only had 1 winning season. Baker's had 2. So like I have a tough time, and I understand that Jameis like. Baker's probably playing right on more talented teams. I get that, right? The Bucs in 2015, like 2015, they had the #1 overall pick. They had that for a reason. The roster wasn't good. And like 2016, 2017, 2018, like those teams had talent, but they were flawed in many areas. Like I think right now the talent's better, but I have a tough time putting those 2 guys in the same tier list when Baker has double the playoff appearances and it has a playoff win under his belt.
No, I'm perfectly fine with putting Baker Mayfield on the B tier. So with that,
it's actually funny. That's one of the few players on this list. I think if you did his whole career, I think it's C. I think it actually goes down if you do his whole career.
Yeah, I think you're right. That would have been an interesting take on this list as well. Maybe. I don't think we're going to do an episode like that. But if you want to, you can go to tiermaker.com. You can search Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is one of the first available tier lists on here. I don't have a username for who made it, but this is going to wrap up our Tampa Bay Buccaneers tier list. Here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, argue with your mama. This is the Cannon Fire Podcast Tampa Bay Buccaneers tier list. In the S tier, some of the all-time greatest. Mike Evans, Warren Sapp, Mike Allstott, Levante David, Derrick Brooks, Leroy Selman, and 1 Rondé Barber. In the A tier, Vita Vea, Tom Brady.
And unofficially John Lynch.
And unofficially John Lynch. Thank you for the reminder. In the B tier, Rob Gronkowski, Gerald McCoy, Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield. In the C tier, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Bucky Irving, Antonio Brown, Kate Otten, Brad Johnson, Jameis Winston, Leonard Fournette, and Ndamukong Suh. And in the D tier, it's your boy Steve Young, NFL Hall of Famer.
Yeah, again, doing it on Buccaneers careers. Obviously, this is all time. The list looks pretty differently. So,
well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Argue with us in the comments whether you agree or not. But that'll do it for today's episode. Again, mixing it up, doing something a little bit different for the offseason. I figured we could have some fun. And look at that, Evan. We did it in just over an hour. So,
there we go.
We made some good time. And hopefully we'll make some good discussion as well. Leave us your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. YouTube.com/cannonfirepodcast. You can also find the show on social media. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram, Bucs_Daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. And check out his written work at BucsNation.com. You got anything cooking here in the coming weeks?
Well, going to be looking at, ahead to free agency a little bit. So I think I'm going to be doing like a Buccaneers free agency priorities in terms of re-signing guys. I usually do that every year. And then also maybe do a stay or go predictions article as well on where I think, not necessarily what I would do, but what I think will happen with the Buccaneers UFAs. They don't really have an incredibly long list, but there's a couple intriguing names there. So,
last but not least, you can find myself on Instagram and Twitter at Retticus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. Thank you guys for watching, listening, or hanging out with us today. We deeply appreciate you. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish. We will see you in the next episode. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening, and go Bucs.